The Seattle Seahawks came into this Sunday's game against the Arizona Cardinals with everything to gain. This was not one of those it's all on the line, do or die, but it would have been nice to reinforce your grip on this division. It would have been nice to get that tiebreaker against the Arizona Cardinals, having beaten them twice on the year, and beyond that, putting to bed their playoff aspirations and also firmly sinking in yourselves into that third seed in this NFC playoff standing playoff hunt. And the Seahawks were able to accomplish just that. Their fourth win in a row, their fifth win in 7 games as this team is rounding into form, their best shape it would seem here at the end of the year. It was a game that started off a little bit dicey as your Seattle Seahawks allowed an opening touchdown to the Arizona Cardinals, that same Cardinal team that you kept to 6 points a couple of weeks ago and you went, oh, this is going to be a bit tighter. Oh, this is going to be a bit tougher than that week a couple games ago. But no, in fact, your team was able to lock this one in, even if it looked a little bit raw there off that opening drive. The offense answered back with 3 points and a long sustaining drive and a good purposeful approach that sort of set the standard for the day for them. But then your defense came back on that second series against the Arizona Cardinals, and Ernest Jones, he drops to a spot in space. He gets to depth on his zone drop, and Kyler, who sees cover 3 there in in-breaking routes, it's a route you typically see able to beat that cover 3 look, but because Ernest Jones gets such great depth on the play, he's able to jump in front of the ball by Kyler, make the interception, get the offense back out on the field. And you often see this with offenses. This has been a truism going back to my time even watching football into the 80s. When you get that turnover from the defense, the offense does that one key thing the second they walk out on that field. And what is that? You take your shot. You take advantage of that momentum. And that's just what they did. Grubby dialed up a route, having JSN in the slot, little corner route to the back of the end zone. Geno threw it perfect. JSN ran a great route to the spot in that back in the end zone, and bam, it's 10-7, and you're really starting to roll over the top of this Cardinal team. You kick it back off to them, and then you get another interception turned right back around. Bang, bang, interceptions on 2 straight possessions. And what's so wonderful about this interception on a couple of different levels is, first off, it's Bryant, who continues to ascend. Now his 3rd interception since taking over those starting duties about mid-season or so. He's had a couple of other near misses where he could have 5 interceptions at this point as the kid continues to show. Whether outside corner, whether you're going to play him in the slot, whether you're going to play him out there at safety, he's got a nose for the ball. We know about the Peanut Tillman punch where he had all those fumbles in his rookie year. He also had 2 interceptions called back due to penalties that had nothing to do with him that year. So he's also a guy that also has some ball skills and a capability of taking the ball away and maybe a unique standard from that safety position. He seems like an answer there and an answer in the long term. The secondary part of it was cool about that particular play is on that opening touchdown drive, Kyler recognizes that he gets a mismatch at the end of that drive with Wilson, his wide receiver, matched up on Bryant down the field in one-on-one coverage, and Kobe got smoked on the play and smoked badly. Similarly, they come back here. Kobe's in a single high look to start out on the play. They're running, it looks like, a crosser underneath. Kobe recognizes it. He sees it. He knows Kyler's going to attack him again, and he jumps the route. He purposefully makes the play. It's not a tip ball. It's not an errant throw. It's him jumping in front of that route. Maybe his most impressive interception of the season, and you give the ball right back to the offense with an opportunity to put their foot on that Cardinal throat, and that's just what they did. It's a Cardinal, it's a smaller bird, it's a smaller throat, but they found their footing on top of it and they pressed down. And what did Geno and the boys do? Nice drive getting right up the field, and they did it on the back of running the football. You go to Charbonnet, he gets a nice run right up the field. Geno, ballsy as ever, goes right up the field and says, hey, run, hurry up. I'm not even going to call a new play. Not even going to call a secondary spot. We're going right back to the same play. We're going right back down their throat with it. I don't care if they know. And as ballsy as that was, it was kind of cool to in the moment where Geno recognizing, I might have caught the cards here. We're kind of rolling here. Stay with this. And it was only a play where you gain 2-3 yards to get down to, let's say, the 2-yard line or so in that moment. But it was a great little recognition there by Geno, a guy with a really efficient, really good day. But some of the best stuff he did at times today was some of that decision-making in the moment, when to run it fast, when to slow it down, what to change up at the line of scrimmage. So you're down to the 2-yard line, and then Grubb does something many Seahawks fans have been calling for and asking for and begging for. Creativity down at the goal line. More misdirection down at the goal line. You start out in goal line on the situation, heavy look. You've got that fullback in the backfield with that Sundle as your fullback. You're looking like you're going to come right downhill, and like you have already prior this year where it's gotten stopped so many times over. But instead, we see an adjustment. You see a lot of pre-snap motion and shifting, guys moving here, guys moving there. They go from this to a split backfield where you have Sundell and you have Charbonnet here on this side, and then Charbonnet goes into motion into the flat. And then post-snap, you have Charbonnet come back as a fly sweep guy to that side that you already have Sundell, your fullback over here center on that side, and you have a wall of bodies there. You're running it to the edges rather than hammering it right up the middle. You bang it in for a touchdown. A great sequence of plays all across the board. You get up big on them at that point, and really, by and large, at that point, this game was over. It was the Seahawks then just keeping their foot on that little baby throat of that little baby bird and keeping it pressed down and not letting up throughout the game. It wasn't as much as you were dynamic the rest of the game and getting a ton of sacks or interceptions or any other turnovers at that point. You got the lead out in front of them, though, and with how you ran the ball in the day, with how you controlled the ball when you needed to offensively, and then how great the defensive played overall as they just stack another phenomenal performance up, in my opinion here, you're able to go get the win. It's one of those ones here you go, well, can you win the game in the first quarter? Can you win the game in the second quarter? Kind of. Sometimes. This was a game that sort of felt that way. And I did feel like a little bit as you got into that second half with your Hawks, they made some good plays on both sides of the ball there, but it did feel like the coaching staff on both sides of the ball was going to be a little bit more safer and just kind of lean on that lead as you went through, where you saw McDonald a couple of weeks ago with Kyler Murray really drawing up a lot of those stacked boxes and simulated pressures. In this game, you lived more in those four-man fronts. You might have brought a little bit of a five-man action here and there, fire zone blitzes and whatnot like that, but aside from that, you just stayed with the four-man fronts. You trusted them to get the job done. You dropped back in coverage. The Cardinals got a little bit gun shy, I think, after those two interceptions to Kyler Murray, as there was a little bit more than to let's stay to the short passing game. Let's stay with our running game. Let's just stay committed into that pocket of things. And you're able to kind of tamper down their ability, I think, to really hit you with some of the more of the chunk plays down the field at that point. The Cardinals were still able to score into that second half, but the offense was, again, just able to do enough in leaning on that lead and controlling the ball that you got the win and it was carried away. But the defense, another performance where from start to finish, from top to bottom, from the left defensive end to the back end safety, you really do say pretty much everybody does their job, and there was nobody that was some horrible weak link from this game that you point to and go, boy, that guy was tough. Derek Hall was a demon out the gate in this game. He was forcing a hold, it seemed like, just about every other snap from Paris Johnson. It was getting called about 1/8 of the time, but he was out there busting his butt, making it happen. Uchenna Nwosu was out there a little bit in just a very minor role, but even his snaps were restricted because you had Boye Mafe out there balling, especially in the run game and what he was doing. Leonard Williams wasn't able to get as much done as far as a pass rusher in this game, but an absolute monster against the run. The Cardinals were able to get a little bit more done in this game to the tune of 23 carries and 121 yards, but when you really look at it, they have a couple of longs that really stand out in this game where there's a 15-yarder, there's a 14-yarder, there's a 23-yarder, and I'm not removing those from the ultimate end-all as far as what you did on the day, but you do remove those runs down and look at what they did on the rest of those runs, and you were very tight, and you kept in that Cardinal team to one-dimensional, and then with the fact that you removed their ability to push the ball down the field by some of the fear from those early interceptions, it became very simplistic, that Cardinal attack at that point as you move through the game. Partly why I think you felt confident to lean on that lead in the second half is you knew that even if the Cardinals scored, they were going to take a long time to get up that field to go and get that score. But the defense, everybody played great. The fronts were awesome. The linebackers, Tyrese Knight, Ernest Jones. Knight maybe had his best game of the year. He actually led the way in tackles for your Seahawks. He actually had a couple of passes defensed on the back end. And there were a few times in this game where he was matched up with wide receivers and held up close in coverage with wide receivers. Very impressive on his part. You know, Kyler was going after him because he saw that very thing with his receivers on the outside, but he was able to make it stand up. Also really good as a tackler in this game. Also very good against the run. Once again, Tyrese Knight, we found ourselves, I keep repeating myself, much like Kobe Bryant, we found ourselves a starter in the immediacy and probably here in the long term. Say nothing of Ernest Jones, who I'm thinking more and more is getting closer and closer to that definite contract extension and right quick with how he's playing. The back end was equally impressive. Tariq Woolen felt like after some of the challenges of last week and maybe being called out by some out there, including I'm sure within the locker room on that one play on that 3rd and 26 that I talked about last week on the wrap-up, came back in this day and he was a lot more solid as a tackler, and I think he had his best day as a tackler out there. There were some moments in space where he had to hold up one-on-one and he made it stick. He had a little bit more gusto, let's say, a little bit more purposefulness in going about his tackling game here. Had a couple of points, he gave up some moments in coverage here, but he came back and made some plays in coverage as well as knocking a ball away in the back of the end zone, preventing the Cardinals from being able to punch punch it in a very key moment in this game. So he held up pretty well out there. Witherspoon, again, is not going to necessarily fill up the stat column, not necessarily get you a lot of these picks or whatnot, but he's just all over the field. He's just flying around making plays, great as a tackler. You just see him all around the ball, almost every single snap, helping out in some way or another. His hustle shows up time and time again, but the guy just plays at 120 miles an hour when everybody else is playing at 55. It's pretty wild to watch, but he's a great player, and this kid's having an impact on a defense. It's the collective nature of all these guys working together. It's Julian Love out there in coverage and tight and doing what he's doing with his versatility. It's all of that working together as far as why this defense is coming together. It ain't one single or a couple of entities of dominant parts. It's everybody doing their job, stopping the run, turning one-dimensional, not giving up the big chunk plays, and that's what's allowing for this defense to turn into a very dominant unit as they continue to climb the ranks in the charts here defensively as the season continues to wind along. Offensively speaking, they were good enough today. They made the Cardinals pay when they made mistakes with turnovers. Geno Smith, rightly, as I've asked him to do in reading the room and being aware of, do I have a really great defense and how they're playing? Is my special teams holding up on their end? If that's going on, then I need to make sure I'm playing a clean game. I can't have these interceptions, can't have these turnovers down in the red zone. When you look at Geno Smith's day, 24 of 30, 233 yards, 1 touchdown, 110 quarterback rating. Those aren't sparkling numbers. They're efficient. He certainly was good on the completion percentage front of things, but he was so much better than simply the numbers I think would show in this football game by the level of control he had in this game at the line of scrimmage. Part of what we've asked from Geno here this year is, yeah, we know at times we've asked you to have to carry too much offensively, especially when the defense wasn't playing well and you were needing to score more points. But as the defense starts to play well, play cleaner. Trust more in your defense. Trust more in your special teams. We've been asking for Geno from that. In the past couple of weeks, that's the adjustment that he's brought to his game, where he's being a little more careful. Here's a game where you get Kyler with 2 turnovers, allowing your offense to work off of a short field. He's giving you that advantage. Don't give that right back to them. Play a clean game, especially when you got your defense playing like they're playing, like how the special teams playing in this game, and then how you're running the ball. Geno read the room in this one, saw what he needed to do, made his throws when they were needed to be made, and there was plenty of some high-level throws in this game that he made, including a great conversion to Jackson Smith and Jigba, where it was starting to look like the offense was going to skid a little with some of those pre-snap penalties. He's got pressure all around him. He's on his back foot. I don't think he gets all of it on the throw. I think the defender's tugging on him as he's throwing it. He gets just enough out there to Jackson Smith and Jigba, who's able to pick the ball up off the turf. I mean, you couldn't put a piece of paper between the football and the turf. It was that much of space. He picks it up, makes the catch, go get the first down, and now you're back to moving. Now you're back to driving. But it was Geno's decision-making of knowing when he could make those kind of risque sort of throws, when to be a little bit safer. Certain throws, there was one to Noah Fant in this game where they had it designed up to him. It's a big shot throw down the field. It's kind of open, but the outside cornerback's got close leverage here. You got a safety closing over the top. Geno puts it in just the spot where either his guy gets it or nobody gets it. And I like that Geno was thinking about that in this game when he had so many other parts of this team working together and were flowing correctly to where it wasn't going to be necessary for you to throw for 325, for 330 for us to get this win. And he recognized it, and I thought he played really well there, while at the same time taking those moments. There's a throw to Tyler Lockett in the back of the end zone that they just barely missed, where I like the gutsiness on the throw. It's 3rd and 11. He gets one-on-one on the outside with Tyler, puts in the place where either Tyler gets it or nobody gets it. Beyond the glamorous stats or the high completion percentage, this was a day about decision-making and managing the game. Not being a game manager per se from Geno's perspective, but doing more to control this game from the neck up, which I've often pointed to as an attribute that he has. He has the legs, he has the arm, but he also has the wisdom of the position, having played in it for well over 10 years. You get this on a particular play where he audibles. Cardinals like to blitz. Geno recognizes the blitz is coming, audibles out of the play. This then forces Budda Baker to fully show the hand of the blitz, where he comes downhill and gets in position on the blitz. Problem is that he's on the high side of the formation and Geno's audible down to the low side of the formation. So post-snap, Budda Baker's flying off the line of scrimmage, but he's completely run himself out of play by the positioning of his blitz, and Geno has ran, essentially, Zach Charbonnet right into daylight. Charbonnet able to bust out then a 51-yard on the play, kind of a back-breaking run in that moment, and all set up by that audible by Geno Smith and recognizing that blitz, as he does a pretty good job of that week in and week out. That's the type of management that he brought to play. Steady as she goes today from his perspective, cleaning up the parts of his game we wanted to see cleaned up from this year It wasn't that it was all bad, just, hey, clean this part up, and we think the ultimate outcome of this will be for the benefit of the team, and it has been over these past couple of weeks, while he's still been able to be very effective from the position. So a great game from Geno Smith, but this was really an MVP performance offensively from Zach Charbonnet. My man had his career best day, and by far. 22 carries, 134 yards. That's a 6.1 yard per carry average. 2 touchdowns. He also added in the mix 7 catches on the day on 59 yards, and that's on a very efficient 7 targets. This was a guy who drew comps from Chip Kelly, his college coach, to a once former NFL great, Matt Forte, a guy that's right on that line of being a Hall of Fame worthy running back who could really hurt you both as a pass catcher and as a runner, and equally so. And that's what you got a little bit from Charbonnet today. He punished them at the most on the ground, but showed you that he was also capable as a running back out of the backfield. And what I liked about the approach from Seahawks today is we saw the adjustments from a little bit from Geno Smith and keeping a cleaner game, but also from Grubb, where right out the gate in this game, you have Geno dropping back and looking to hit Charbonnet out into the flat. I believe it was the opening play from them in the game. I think they had 3 targets to Charbonnet on that opening drive, setting the standard for the day where we're going to make this a purposeful part of our approach. I think what the Cardinals did in that first matchup is a lot of heavy zone drops to depth. And what would happen on that is that you'd have Geno drop back. You'd have a play designed for a 7-step drop or a deeper play to hit it deep. You'd have Geno looking and looking and looking and looking, and then he'd look at the offensive line, and then he'd still see that he'd have a little more time, so he'd look back up to see if there was something else there that wasn't available, and then maybe begrudgingly, eventually, he'd go to the check down. What you have to do instead to really maximize those check downs to where you're giving the running backs a true chance to do some damage with the ball after the catch is you can't allow the coverage to sink back up. It'll drop back to depth initially, but the longer that you're looking and the more that you start to look back at the line, look back and look, it'll start to pull up a little bit, and then they can start to squeeze back down in that flat route, as opposed to what you saw Geno do today, I think, where you'd see him go from 1 read to 2 read to the check down. It was very much more quicker and in a timely basis getting to the check down, and then you were providing space to the running backs to be able to do something with the ball in their hands then after the catch, like we saw from Charbonnet. But he was tremendous today. 91 yards after contact. That's better than anybody else has done in the NFL this year as far as in any individual game after contact, 91 yards. A tremendous performance from him as he showed you today what he can do as a running back. I don't think he's quite to the same talent as Walker, but he's just a different type of talent. He's a different type of running backs. They come in all different styles, all shapes and sizes, and with him, he needs a hole to be opened up to be at his most effective. You give him that hole, he can maximize it, but he does need that hole. And the way the Seattle Seahawks brought that hole out today, coming mainly on the back of the gap running scheme in this game. You did some different things running the ball, but there's definitely been a transition here recently from this offense of going to more of the gap scheme and a little bit away from the zone. And this is kind of funny to me because you essentially dealt the Cardinal the same poison that they like to give their opponents on a weekly basis because they run the gap almost implicitly in how they want to go about it. Gap is where you're going to pull 2 of your offensive linemen from one side of the formation, and you're going to run them to the power side, to the run side of the formation. So you're going to run to the left, you're going to pull them from the right, and you end up with a pile of bodies coming downhill at your defensive linemen, and you add a tough, hard-nosed running back behind that pile of bodies, and it can be very tough to defend. Well, you give them a taste of their own medicine today, did you, with the Arizona Cardinals, because you leaned on that gap-heavy scheme, and you did it really with Sa'atoa and Abraham Lucas being your 2 guys pulling in space back across the formation to the left side. And they would get their blocks sealed in. Both of these 2 guys are very mobile for the position and very capable in doing this. In the case of Abraham Lucas, he comes from the air raid. He comes from doing that pulling in space stuff with Wazoo and doing a lot of it. And he's very comfortable in doing it. They can not only get to the spot, get on the spot on time, but get the block laid as well. It's a tricky kind of block to lay because it's not about just powering up. It's not just about bullying the man across from you. It's about being athletic and quick out of your stance. And both of those guys were right in the right spot to free Charbonnet up to go find some yards down the football field and something to build upon as we go into the future here from the Seahawks in this run game that they can, I think, lean on even with Walker once he gets into the mix. But well blocked up today, by far your best day in running the ball in the season. 31 carries, 176 yards. Kenny McIntosh filling in as your number 2 running back, and he was very effective as well. 7 carries, 38 yards from him, a 5.4 yard per carry average. Your Seahawks were really able to lean on that run, really remain balanced. In fact, you had more runs in this game than you had passes, partly because you took your foot a little bit off the gas in that second half and kind of leaned on that lead and leaned on that running game. But it worked. You came away with 30 points as an offense. You found effectiveness both passing and running. You got the touchdowns when you needed. You put the points on when you needed. And if you come away with the win, lean on the win, even if it is in the halfway in third quarter, so be it. Jackson Smith-Njigba led the way with 5 catches and 82 yards. Another well-played game from him. That catch where he picked that ball up off the turf was awesome and so timely from him. Also the touchdown reception. He has continued to stack performance after performance up, much like this defense recently on the other side of the ball. DK was pretty effective in there with his 4 catches and 49 yards. Only targeted 6 times, but you only threw the ball 30 times, so there just wasn't a lot of opportunity for your pass catchers. I thought Farrell Brown and AJ Barner held up well. They had a couple of catches in space. They blocked really well on their side of it. Part of that collective team effort and how you run blocked in this game to get this job done and be so effective on the ground as you were. And the team did hold up well in pass protection in addition to this. This is a Cardinal team that doesn't necessarily get after you with grade A pass rushers, but they love to run a lot of blitzes, a lot of stack boxes. They're going to run a lot of multiple fronts at you and challenge you in that way. And yet we have a game here where Geno comes through this game with a season minimum rate as far as his pressure rate at about 19%. No sacks, only a couple quarterback hits. So an offensive line put into their best performance of the year here in this game all the way around, both as a run blocking unit as in a pass protecting unit. And it was great to see as it's just another part of this team, hopefully rounding into shape and getting at their best at the right time of year. A collective team win in addition to this, where the special teams unit also handled their business. Jason Myers made all of his kicks on the day 3 of 3. They didn't ask him to hit his typical 50-plus yarder, but he got done his kicks. He hit all of his extra points, and you needed all those points to keep this lead lengthened out so you could lean on the Cardinals like you did in the second half. Likewise, Michael Dixon came into this game with some back spasms, and you were worried about the potentiality of Jason Myers having to handle your punting duties in addition to his kicking duties. Luckily, Dixon was able to tough it out in this one, and not only did he tough it out and barely get off little shanks, but he was able to average 53 yards a punt on the day on 5 punts. He also had a key moment in this game where he was able to pin the Cardinals deep at the 2-yard line, where he just knocked it out true right out of bounds at the 2-yard line, as he, like Myers, is having an all-pro-like season. So tip of the cap to the special teams unit as they do hold that down. I know the return unit can be sometimes dicey. We'll see if Durden can settle those waters down a little bit, but you can always count on Myers. You can always count on Dixon, at least this year with Myers. This team gets to 8-5. They come out with this win. They firm up a little bit more of this division footing, though let's face it, this may come down to the Rams at the end of the year. And some Seahawks fans may look at that and say, hey, what are we really going to do if we make it the playoffs in this given year when there's been so much that they've had to kind of correct and fix on the fly to get this right? Aren't we, Brandon, instead a year out? And I say to that, maybe. But if you are going to be a team, and there have been teams in NFL history that can get hot at just the right time, that things can all click into place, that they can almost get into this zone-like state, whereas throughout the year, it was so much about them finding themselves. And the key to a team being like that is you're playing best brand of football on both sides of the football at the end of the season. You got that special teams unit that's a league best like unit in how they can play and holding up their end of it. You can be at your healthiest as you get down the line to that end season run. And so far as we see this season emerge for your Seahawks, they're checking those boxes off to potentially then make that noise in the playoffs. And if you get the home playoff game as the 3rd seed, which you've reinforced better by today, yeah, you got business to handle through the rest of this year. And nothing is certain. You got to go win against some still tough opponents down the line of this. But you have set the stage to not only win this division, but go make some playoff noise if you can continue to keep getting better on each side of the ball, week in and week out. The defense is rounded into dominant shape. Now can the offense find that equal footing in the passing and running attack? Can they get better in pass pro like we've seen them? Satoa, Lamea, Lucas's impact and their return and what they're bringing in to bear on it. Can that all work together in that way? We shall see. But I tell you, my fellow Seahawks faithful, dream large, dream big. As Russell Wilson once said 12 years ago about that team that nobody thought could make any noise in the playoffs, why not us? My name is Brandon Kane. This is the Hawks Nest. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe. But beyond all that, don't you ever forget. Go Hawks!